Welcome back, this is Zephyr, and today I'm just going to be going over a ton of patch notes as fast as I can, which we'll see if that's actually fast or not. So this patch is very long, very old at this point. I've been talking about it in my relatively recent videos. I need to get more of those done. This is what I've been kind of working on, is I want to show stuff off and that things aren't done, so I'm not really playing the game to show stuff off if it's not done. So there's more changes to the artifacts. Artifacts go from 0 to 40, and they're based on the tier of the boss that you defeat to get an artifact. You always get an artifact when you kill a boss, including the Guardians. There's only 2 bosses that give you level 0 artifacts, such as Urix and Pyromancer, that I'm aware of. I believe Cryomancer is level 1, and Hydromancer is like maybe level 1, level 2, something in that range. But most bosses are at max level 12. I believe even the Temple Guardians in Fire and Sky, I think those are also tier 12. The final boss is actually tier 15. I believe he might be tier 60. I'm pretty sure it's 15. But since there's 40 levels, you're getting the first 12 to 15, and there's a bunch of nameless that are like closer to 15 as well in New Game. If you don't go to New Game Plus, you're kind of capped around level 15. Faded hunts might be able to get you something a little higher than that, but other than that, or the PvE Guardian, or not Guardian, Coliseum Mage battle thing. So movement speed, I've been changing this back and forth between percentage bonus and flat bonus. Flat bonus feels like it gives more of a number. It's like, oh, hey, 30 movement speed, but you can't feel 30 movement speed, and 30 movement speed is less than 10%. So you have 500 movement speed in the mod. It's 495 in the base game as a maximum. I increased the maximum and lowered the minimum. So it's 400 to 500 based on your weight, instead of 405 to 495 in the base game. Because of this, anyways, the range on a lot of these things, they're being changed from like 4 to 8 to like 4 to 6. This means that the variance is less valuable. It's less valuable to get like a super good roll, but you're more focused then on just getting the roll itself, getting the right combination of stats. You're not going to be potentially chasing these stats for hundreds of hours to get a perfect roll. That is my goal anyway. This is not late game Diablo 2 where you're going for that 1% perfection. It's just not important, in my opinion, in this game to have something like that exist. Memories can be gotten from haze. This was in the last video, I believe. But, and I think it succeeded. I'm pretty sure it succeeded a couple times. Level 1 materials have a 3% chance. It increases to 6% over the course of some mission tier bonus. That mission tier is the same as the Guardians. So if you're chasing a named mage that is tier 5, the mission tier is tier 5, basically, for the most part. I don't know how that affects the world itself in the context, but basically digging through haze burnt memories, haze piles, will give you memories. And the idea is that you're collecting the memories of those that have burnt from the haze and lost themselves and that kind of stuff. I think it's very apt to kind of do this. It also gives you the capacity to actually upgrade your artifacts. Bolstering in the mod actually does upgrade your artifacts to the next tier. So once you do find the artifact that gives you the right combination of stats, you'll be able to keep that and upgrade it until it caps out at whatever max tier of mage that you've killed. I think it's max tier -1. So if you've killed a tier 5 mage, you can cap your artifacts to tier 4. A side note, not mentioned here, but is mentioned in the past, artifacts, they do diminish by 7% per rarity, which means that you can have more stats, but less value. Mostly, this means that you might need to rely on a slightly better roll, or just simply a higher level. So you're still going to hit the cap as long as you get to 40. You just may hit that cap a lot sooner if it's a single stat versus a 4-stat legendary. 4-stat legendaries have a 20% reduction. So it goes 0% reduction, 7%, 14%, 20%. So the difference between that third rarity and the fourth rarity is a little bit smaller. It's just that 6% instead of 7%. But yeah, each rarity has a diminishing value. So when we're talking about such low numbers, though, it really only matters when you're trying to kind of cap it out. The difference of 6.5 thorns damage. I've been doing a little bit of a thorns run on the side. 6.5 thorns damage versus 6.1 thorns damage. That's kind of what you're looking at for the most part. It's not going to be super different at the low end, but it's definitely going to be noticeable at the high end. So you can get a max bonus of like 20 attack speed or 20 melee damage, and you'll just hit that cap sooner on a single stat or duo stat kind of thing than a tri-stat or a quad stat. Been adding, making sure that charm effects have missing descriptions fixed. If you're playing on the older version, 0.2 here, if there's a charm that doesn't have that fixed, it may crash the game. I did find a crash there. I'm not sure how much difference there is between my version and the release version in regards to checking for that. I'm going to eventually make all ranged weapons pierce. So this means your spellcaster items, your throwing potions. This means that this stat will be super powerful for something like throwing potions, I think, because you'll be able to throw the potion, it'll explode, and then it'll explode again and explode again because it could pierce multiple enemies. It does mean that it could potentially multi-hit. I will have to keep an eye on that when I actually do fix it. Ragdolls, I'm not going to go into ragdolls because I've experimented with some of these and they didn't really work well. Such as like removing the actual loss of control on the ragdoll. This did not feel good. There's a lot of stuff that's hard-coded to the animation of the ragdoll, which is it J-lift? Might be J-lift or something like that. So like fly is your jump ball animation, and J-lift, I believe, is your ragdoll. I think that's the same in the first game too, J-lift or something. There's a couple different ones. But by removing that from the character, you don't fly as far. You have full control. You can move XY with your controller while you're falling/flying. It just doesn't feel right. It feels very, very wrong. So I didn't do it. I do want to do this where there's kind of like a forced ragdoll or a forced down state and kind of like an immunity from outside effects. This will be hard coded to specific effects like tornado. So you might get ragdolled into the tornado, but once the tornado grabs you, it'll make you immune to outside effects. It'll do probably very minimal damage. It'll act like a grab more so in that sense because you'll be immune to outside effects. And then once the tornado is done with you, it'll force you into a down state. And then you'll have a little extra iframe. So you'll go down, and until you get back up, you'll be in that iframe type state. Yeah, it's a lot of work on this. It's a lot of experimentation on this. But I want it to be less of there's a dude ledge guarding. You had to do a bunch of parkour to get to the ledge. You get to the ledge. He hits you barely. He flings you across the room. You fall to your death because he was activated by a haze burnt because the mage passed through. There's so many little things like that just don't feel fair. They're not fun because it's not something you did. It's just simply the mage passed by, a haze burnt randomly spawned there, and so it activated an enemy that's now hovering the edge. You can't hit the edge, you can't grab the edge, and they can hit you instantly. And it's a lot of the time it's a fling outward or a fling straight down. And depending on how much damage they do and how far the fall is, you're dead. And it just doesn't feel great. I want you to be able to recover, and boss effects like Tornado or the Thaumamancer's Hammer, I want those to be a little bit more handcrafted ragdolls, and the rest of it kind of toned down. You will still take full damage from these ragdolls in the upcoming patch, as I left that in the previous one. The duration is full in the previous one, but the damage in 0.2 is like vanilla. In vanilla, after you get hit by a ragdoll, you take 50% damage from all sources. All new sources. I don't think dot effects are calculated across that. So that's being removed. It is showing how strong ragdolls were in the original game. That was patched in. This part was patched in almost immediately, I think within the first 2 weeks. And then this was patched in later on, probably with the first like mild DLC free content patch thing. Some weapons are going to give iframes. Whip crack has been fixed so that only triggers on a light attack or an attack that otherwise doesn't have a bonus damage ratio. So you're not getting a multiplier of like 1.3 times 1.3 becomes, kind of crazy. Drop code attack actually rewritten and tested. So tall falls on, I can't talk today. I apologize. Tall mages, enemies, whatnot, can be hit a maximum of 2 times. There's a timer on it. It's about 0.1 seconds, I believe. Maybe it's 0.15. But it basically just creates this iframe. I'm surprised it wasn't already there. I think it's possibly a bug. In the base game, a drop attack only does 1% or 1 times damage. So you could do the head grapple stab face thing that you get in the game against the mages, and then drop attack, and you potentially hit 4 times in the base game, which is 4 times 1.0 is 4 times damage. In this, you have to be right up at the top to get it, but you'll do 2.6 because it'll be 1.3 times 2. And I still want to put a sort of a hyper frame on that. If you're in that animation for a minimum amount of time, such as like even, I don't know, a couple frames, I want you to kind of build a hyper frame maybe over time. Maybe that's how I'll do it. A hyper frame over time as you're falling. So if an arrow hits you, you're not immediately staggered out of a falling stab animation that otherwise makes perfect sense that you wouldn't be staggered out of. In other words, I don't want you to have to rely on poise for things that the base game just kind of doesn't do as logically as I feel it should. A light stagger or L hit is the stagger animation. An L hit animation was found in the game code when I was testing something else, parries actually, while you're running or idle only. This is 7 frames long, 7 keyframes long, which I'm not positive. I know the first game, a keyframe was 1/30th of a second because the game is running at 160 or 60 frames a second, but the game was originally made for consoles. And a lot of the engine XNA stuff originally was made for consoles with Scott Studios. This completely ignored poise on purpose. So as long as you didn't block and you were standing still or running, and you got hit by basically anything, it would create this weird little light stagger where you just kind of flinch. Your head goes back and you kind of flinch. I don't find this meaningful, and the fact that it ignored poise entirely also made me remove it entirely. I don't like it. It doesn't make any sense. I'm looking to make some little tiny things feel better, not worse. And I think this was one of those worse feeling things. One of the reasons I discovered this was that when you failed a parry so poorly, and it was a lot of alt tabbing to like check a piece of code, unpause the debugger, retry to something. When you failed a parry so horribly that you're considered idle, you'd get staggered even with high poise. Made no sense. It literally just ignores poise. Anyway, so that's gone. Starting stamina is now 100. It has been normalized, so it's the same structure of code behind the scenes. It's the same, more or less, regen behind the scenes, etc. And you'll now get more stamina per point as well. Furthermore, it has been basically doubled. It used to be in the mod, it was 70 and you got 35 over 35 points, 1 point per level. In the base game, it's 67 and you got 35 over 35 points. You now get a lot more max stamina. Now, max stamina is not that good. I know a lot of people will say, oh, this is maybe easy mode or something. Max stamina is not that good. And I'm actually planning on nerfing shield blocking on the player because they will have access to more stamina. Will the nerfs be huge? Probably not. But they won't be just like freebies as they have in the past. I will check this. I will test this as best as I can with the time allotted. Stamina and health and not rage, because rage doesn't matter. Stamina, focus, and health will all be set to 0.5 as a minimum value. So if you have an artifact that gives you, 5.25 health, you will not get that 0.25 health. It is intended to just round down to whatever. So you'll either have, 10.5 or 21 health or whatever instead, or stamina or whatever. This is just to keep the game cleaner. It's weird to have a maximum health of, 59.917. And it just, I don't want you living with a sliver of health that's 0.197 or something. And I know that sounds weird, as a max value. Now, as a current value, it's just what it is. It's just how it's going to be. But as a max value, I just want enemy health and your health and stuff to be a little bit more fluid. I don't know what the right word would be there. Maximum stamina is in the vanilla game. It's 4 times current max. I have made it to a flat value of -200, which would be your soft cap max. So you can get 200 because you could get plus 100 over 35 points. So this is always -200. It does not increase with more stamina or more willpower. It is just always -200. This is a nerf to the base game, sort of. It just means that in the early game, you can go farther negative. Maybe. What's 4 times 67? No, you can't. You can't go more negative. So this is a buff in almost every aspect, but it does mean that it is static. It's not some moving target. That's weird. Regen per point of willpower reverted back to 0. I did have regen on there. It's no longer going to be there. Regen by weight is no longer there. I've removed this. You didn't get much. It's 35 plus 5 times the inverse of your weight. So if you had 25% weight, you get 75% of 5 points per second. So that's been rounded from 35 to 40. And then I increased it by the 50% that, that kind of exists as 67 to 100 is about 50%, 1.49. Which gave us 60 stamina regeneration. I also removed the stamina boost thing. This was a weird charge up, and I have no idea how to really balance it or consider it correctly, and I don't like it, and it feels good, but it just feels at the same time as a program. On the programmatic side, it feels weird. On the player side, it probably feels decent. But I just removed it entirely. It was basically the longer... Up to a point, the longer you use your stamina, the more stamina regeneration you got for a split half second. And then that stamina boost was based on, at one point, it was based on nothing. Then on the second DLC or second content patch, they locked it to a empty or light armor slot. So you only got that boost based on your armor. Not a big fan of that whole system. It's not there in the mod. I didn't carry it over. So I tested it out at 60. 60 felt really not great because basically it's boost gone and regen just normalized. So then I just upped it to 65. I went through Urix and the Pyromancer only at 65. It felt just tolerable at 65. But there were multiple times where I ran out of stamina and it just didn't quite feel right. So I pushed it up from 60, 65, and then to 70. Did it again. Urix to Pyro. That's the third time I did it. And then it felt just above perfect, or just above tolerable. So I'm going to leave it at 70. If you have feedback, come to the Discord and tell me what you think when this actually goes live. So same thing with health. I did nerf health again. Back to this. In the base game, vitality is kind of like 2 points over 35. So you get about 70 health. You start with a 92, so it's less than 100%. But in the mod, you don't get any health per level, which is only 1 point per level. But you could get up to like 50-ish points at level 50. So you started at 92 and you'd end up at like 141 or something at level 50. Math in my head is rough. I'm a paper and pen guy. Anyways, I'm nerfing this down just a little bit from 125 to 100. This is actually how Dark Souls 1 did it. They don't do it evenly across each point of vitality. But it does average out to, at soft cap, you get about plus 100 health. And then the same half point thing that I was talking about earlier. So this has gone from like 3.57 health per point to like 3.2-ish. It's still stronger than vanilla, but you will have to invest into health if you want to survive certain things. Damage reduction across the board has existed in the previous patch. Again, it's not necessarily an easy mode. It's not necessarily a hard mode. It is very just an overhaul. It's very different. It's a different vision or experimentation of the base game. A note from previous patches, almost everything in the mod is additive, and a lot of things have been adjusted to make more sense. Fast hitter is 10% instead of 15%. Faster hitter is 15% instead of 20%. A weapon with 20% base attack speed that's scaled with artifacts further as a multiplier, you could get like a 15% multiplied artifact against this. So it'd be like 1.2 times 1.15, which gives you, I think, 1.38. No, I didn't do that math. I just remember the number. I'm pretty sure it's 1.38. So you're getting an extra like 3. I know it sounds stupid, but you're getting an extra 3% attack speed from the multiplier there. And I wanted to keep everything more neutral and flat. So if you have a fast hitter weapon, it's just plus 10%. If you have an artifact, it's plus 10% as well. You go to plus 20. So fast hitter weapons, big nerf. Big nerf. It's what it is. Slow hitter was already 10%. It's a divisor in the base of the game, so it's divide by 10%, which is really like 0.911, and then the other divisor is divided by 15, which ends up being trying to remember. Don't remember. I don't have a calculator open. I'll move on. Anyways, everything's additional instead of multiplicative, except for blacksmith upgrades, so to say, upgrades at the crafting table, and stat upgrades. Those are still multiplicative because that's your base values. I don't want to mess with those because that could really screw the game over in balance. I'm debating this. I may change slow hitter and fast hitter to always respect the original poise damage of the weapon. I don't know about this, but the idea is that in the back end tooling, how it's structured, as far as I'm aware, this is how Salt 1 works, so Salt 2 is probably the same. If you have a fast hitter weapon, you are getting 10% attack speed-ish, and you are getting, in that case, 10% less damage. But you're still getting the full poise, which makes fast hitters really, really strong because you're getting extra poise effectively. You are spending more stamina on a fast hitter, and there are multiple weapons in Salt 2 that actually have consume higher stamina, consume lower stamina attached to them as well. I'm not sure how that's been used. I'm not sure if there's some data online that I can look at very quickly for that. Anyways, so I may reduce poise damage on fast hitters and increase it on slow hitters as a default effect instead of having it as a special, which means I might need to strip the specials off of some that already have it. But the idea is that slow hitters often suck because of issues like that. And fast hitters often are just the best of the best because of the same thing. I want them both to be good in good situations for the player. Poison, this is very... this poison and dot, it's all of these. This needs to be tabbed in. Under that heading. All poison is currently set to 10 seconds. This might go back to 20. In the first game, it was 20. In the second game, it's 60 seconds. Tarkoth poison, for whatever reason, did not have a multiplier on it. So when you use Tarkoth poison, it lasts like 3 seconds, but did 100% damage at the poison dot. Whereas if you did dot from any other source, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was just the buff. If you got dot from the other buff, it would do 2.5 times over 60 seconds. So Tarkloth was more damage over the same time frame, like more damage per second. But yeah, I'm going to standardize all the poison to like the same time ratio. Dot effects now occur from their non-dot counterparts. This is a big change. It is kind of a reversion towards the first game. If you don't like that, I'm sorry. It's just a lot of the dots don't make sense to me. So fire is going to become a dot that's always 3 seconds. It will be split in any form of burst damage. So there's spells and effects and stuff that are full dot, and I will keep all of those except for the weapon buffs. So if there's like a flamethrower attack or whatever, especially from like a boss, it'll just be pure dot. It'll just be that 3 second dot. So it gives this like little panic mode where maybe I can drink a potion before I burn to death. That's about all I can really see the value of it. But fire will become a 3 second damage over time from all sources, and it will always trigger from 25%. This is how Salt 1 did it. It will always trigger from 25% of any fire burst. Lightning will do the same, 25% from lightning burst. I'm not really sure how much lightning dot is actually in the game, but it's in the code. So it's going to be 1 second. So it's kind of be that zzz kind of damage numbers popping up. That's how Salt 1 did it as well, where it's just like 0.5 seconds or 1 second. These are a little bit longer probably than Salt 1 in Desalinated back in 2019 when I made Desalinated. I believe I ended up, one of the versions of Desalinated ended up actually doing something like 1 second here and maybe 1.5 seconds there. Poison will become either 10 or 20 seconds, undecided. And same thing, but higher. All poison weapons will do 50% burst damage because otherwise they'll do no damage. Like they're not physical plus poison like the first game. So poison weapons need to do half of their damage, or probably kind of like the first game would be like 50-50 physical, 50-50 poison, whatever. So they'll do 50% of their burst damage up front. They will be therefore weaker than they currently are. They will be weaker as a raw damage base. But they will do 50% of that damage times 2. So 100% of that damage over the remaining duration of the dot. So if it's 10 seconds, then you'll be, and it builds in the pool. So every time you hit, you're adding to the pool. So one hit, you're doing, say, 10 damage and adding 20 to the pool. Then you're hitting again, you're adding 10 damage instantly and 20 to the pool. So now you got 40 damage over whether 10 or 20 seconds, whatever, over that time frame. So you're building this massive pool of damage over time. And as you keep doing that, it keeps building up. You're never losing that damage. You are resetting the timer, however, and that's exactly how the first game worked. You are resetting the timer to either 10 or 20 seconds. And I will look at like how poison pops and stuff like that. But all poison that deals burst damage will have this 2 times multiplier, whether it's the tar cloth or the weapon buff or whatever. Similarly, I will probably apply some of this logic to things like fungal. undecided. We'll have to test a bunch of that. Cold Dot lasts 4 seconds. I don't know if I'll keep this as it is. Maybe it'll be 3 seconds. Its damage will be kind of normalized. I don't want you to just burn to death instantly because I changed the timer. And then same thing with Fungal. I'll have to see how that is because it's poison cold. But Fungal will probably do something similar to this cold thing and the poison thing combined. In a lot of games, cold damage causes a slow on the player. I don't want to cause a slow on the player directly. So I'm thinking about, and this is a big question mark still there, I'm thinking about having it probably cut your stamina regeneration by a relatively sizable amount for just those 3 or 4 seconds that it's on you. This will affect enemies, and what stamina does for enemies is it causes the riposte or stagger animation, which opens them up. So if you parry an enemy, you are actually damaging their stamina. This is true in the first game as well. If you parry an enemy, you're damaging their stamina. If you hit an enemy that's blocking, you're damaging their stamina. Either way, they will eventually open up to a riposte because they've been staggered crazy amounts, or they've sustained a lot of damage to their stamina, and therefore they're staggered. So any form of cold dot will cause any form of regeneration of stamina to be massively reduced. This will probably be a multiplier and not an additive effect, so you won't be able to regen out of it by canceling it out in an additive sense. It won't be like minus 30% plus 30%, therefore it's 0. It'll be more of a times 0.7 kind of situation instead, which means it's going to be a little bit stronger in that regard. I still want to remove more Irona and herbs dropping from enemies. There's like a built-in feature for this, and it's like everywhere. And I removed one, but apparently it exists elsewhere as well. Yeah. I want to also increase some other stuff. So I've messed with Silver Find and Item Find due to charms, and found out that there's a bunch of inconsistencies in the game where like some item find stuff works only on drops from enemies, while others work on like mission rewards. And it was just kind of weird that like an artifact silver find didn't work on mission rewards, but it worked on drops, and item find from artifacts worked on mission rewards, but the item find from charms worked something like that. Anyways, they've all been standardized the same way, so that they are equivalent. So whatever mission rewards you get, silver find works, item find works. Whatever kills you do, same thing. They are equal. There was even one that did it for both. Like it had one multiplier for kills and one multiplier for mission rewards. And it was like, why? I don't know. And some of like the silver find, item find stuff was even multiplicative, mostly the silver find, but it's just, it's all one place now. Maybe that doesn't matter to you. I know as a programmer, this bothers me. There's no one source of truth on these two stats. And now there is. I prefer one source of truth. Range damage, nerf, we're moving on to 0.75. So this is a multiplier on all range damage. I think there's some specific weapons that might be culprits as well. The default bow and arrow that you can get, the like tier 1 bow and arrow, it does like 18 damage at level 1, even with the nerf in place, which means that it was doing even more. What is that? 24 damage probably. And that is on like the duelist or no, maybe it wasn't the duelist. Maybe the spear guy, the ranger. I'm not sure which one has that, but basically a lot of range damage was insanely high, dealing upwards of double damage of your melee hits. And I don't necessarily hate that. But for what I'm trying to do in the mod and trying to make it so that your items and your equipment and your decisions matter a little bit more for your character building, this nerf is going to be across all ranged weapons, and even further, some weapons might need to be spot checked as well. I want you to be able to make up most of this damage, but I don't think that ranged weapons should be better than a sword. I think they should be probably equivalent to a sword. So, a sword does 100 damage or something, and a bow does 100 damage. You have limited ammo, but there are new options. We're going to get to this big charm rework down here really soon. How are we doing on time? Longer than I thought, but, I'm long-winded, so that's what it is. Jump and other stamina stuff. There's a bunch of stuff that was irritating me with jumps and rolls and stuff. So attacking with a ranged weapon, attacking with a melee weapon, using a spell, and rolling all consume stamina and pause your stamina regeneration for a short period of time while you're in that animation. In Salt 1, this was a timer. In Salt 2, it's just during the entire animation. So as for that, stamina regeneration while staggered or ragdolled has been reduced to 0. Yeah, I know. It's huge. But if you're screaming out in pain and falling to the floor or whatever and being thrown in the air, you're probably not taking a strong deep breath and recollecting your thoughts. So this is going to be a big nerf to stamina regeneration. Which means that I can mess with ragdolls otherwise. Yeah, they do damage, but maybe they do less damage and they do the stamina regeneration nerf, right? Now they have a different, it's still a negative value, but it's spread across different things instead of just being, hey, you're instant killed. Stamina regeneration. Okay, well, we need to cover this. Jumps now cost 3 stamina. They didn't cost any stamina. And 3 stamina is negligible. You won't really notice the 3 stamina. Let's see their bar move a little bit. But the big thing is jumps are now considered combat. That's basically what's going on. If you're jumping, your regeneration was 50% in the base game. Now it's 0% in the mod. Obviously, this hasn't been released, so you can't really try it yet. But once you try it, I don't think you'll notice much of a difference. You'll just jump up maybe a slight bit less. But yeah, stamina regeneration is normally 0 when blocking, attacking, rolling, all that jazz. So this is considered kind of the same thing. You're jumping. Again, you're probably not doing a pause and meditation while you're flying through the air, especially when you're doing the crazy jumps that you can do in most video games. And because I think jumping is an important aspect of the first game, being able to dodge certain attacks, I think was cool. I don't know how much you can actually dodge in the second game with jumps, though. But nonetheless, I think it's still a valuable resource that you should be able to do. With the stamina changes up here, coming back to this, being able to get more stamina, it's not stamina regen, it's just stamina. It means that you have a larger point of combos. You can do 3 rolls, 4 rolls, 5 rolls, 2 jumps, 7 attacks, whatever, before running out of stamina. And then you're going to need to take a break. So if you want to invest in stamina, you can. Also, blocking consumes a lot of stamina. But otherwise, you're going to have to get stamina regen somewhere. And then stamina regen is still pretty powerful. It always was very powerful. Stamina regeneration now respects these ratios. So if you've got a bunch of stamina regeneration and you jump, you'll get only the regen that it allows you, which is currently 0. There's some other actions. I don't remember what they are. Holding a shield is 0. Running is half, is 50%. Running is 50% regen. But previously you could jump in the air and yeah, your base regen was cut in half, but items were still full value, which made them obscenely powerful. Because, well, they took away from this, in my opinion. They took away from this. Hydra's Dagger now grants regen in all situations where regen is less than 100. So Hydra's Dagger now gives a 7 per second, doesn't sound like much, a 7 per second regen at all times that you would otherwise be at 0. If you have the willpower buff, the regen buff from, is it an Irona nameless item, I think. If you have that, it also gives the same 7, and they do stack. They stacked in the base game, they're going to stack here. So to be able to have 14 regen per second with both of those on. But that's a minimum value, only when it's less than 100%. So if you're at 90% or 50% or whatever, you'll get that 7 or that 14, and it will cap off at 100% as well. It is blocked from going above 100%. But Hydra's Dagger is now better. It is unchanged. Jump dropping through multiple platforms. I found a place that this actually happens. I'm pretty sure it won't break your ankles. I haven't tested it yet. But there's a bunch of like vertical like areas where you can drop through like multiple platforms. If you drop through 3 platforms really quickly, this is a bug I reported forever ago and it just never got fixed. If you drop through 3 platforms really quickly, it never takes you out of the fly animation, technically, which then never resets your last grounded location. That's what it's called in the code, last grounded. So I added a last grounded every time you jump through. It'll set your last grounded as the location that you jumped through. This way you won't, because what it was is it was like you drop through 2 or 3 platforms and you'd break your ankles and make the crunch sound, and you make the animation of falling as if you fell from a large height because it's thinking that you hadn't been grounded in that period of time. And it would cost you like 3 stamina. And so really what it was doing was just making you slow down, and I hated it. It drove me nuts because I love being able to move quickly in a game that at least, I don't know, quickly, accurately maybe is the better word. Massive charm reworks and so artifact reworks as well. The thorns stat from artifacts has been changed from a percentage value to a flat damage value. This means it's a lot weaker in certain situations, but it comes online at the same time. So in the early game, the Skallen shield has a built-in, originally it was like 5 base damage on anything that gave you thorns, and then 10% physical reflection. Now it just does 5 physical damage. So this is a nerf to the Skallen shield. Bosses like Urix do 16 damage, 12 damage, something in that range. I don't know. He's technically buffed in the mod by 20%, so it might be closer to 12 damage in the base game. He might hit harder than that, though. The Skull and Shield is more of a hard-coded special. It does not add to artifacts, so it will take the artifact value if the artifact value is higher. Artifacts deal 5 to 40 damage. This is about 25 to 30 in the late game, depending. This has a low cap and a high per level gain. So it's like 5 plus 2 per level, and then the per level is nerfed by certain breakpoints, so like 5, 10, 15. So at level 2 or something, you'll get 4 physical damage, but it'll only be 25% because it's below level 5. So what does that add up to? 4, 25% is 1. So you get, level 2 artifact could have a really low roll. This is 5 to 7.5. Really low roll of 5, and then you'd have +1 level, +1 damage from levels, and you'd have 6 damage. So you're still capable of getting value out of upgrading. It has a low cap and a high increase. So it will hit 25 or 30 or so in the late game, depending on your relic, your artifact level. Pyro's Dagger is a new source of thorns. It stacks fully with this thorns value here. While Skallen doesn't stack, it's meant to be kind of an either or. The artifact and the Pyro Dagger do stack, and the Pyro Dagger does do fire damage, while the regular thorns is physical. It's kind of like literally having spikes on your shield or something. Big charm reworks, massive charm reworks. Here you go. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, Act 4, Act 5. I wanted to do this. I've been talking about doing something like this, and so I finally dug down and did it. Big overview. Massive overhaul. Amulets are generally like a 50% stronger than rings with the same stat. Sometimes they're 100% depending on what the stat is. So defensive rings were 20 points in the base game. They're still 20 points. They're visually 40 because I doubled the visuals of armor. So like 20 armor is really 20 armor, but it's meant to make it normalize with the first game. So like 100 armor in the second game and 200 armor in the first game, they're the same thing. They're just the same thing. Formula hasn't changed behind the scenes because the formula is the same thing anyway. Just it's a visual number. Anyways, so under the hood, 20 points. Defensive amulets are now 30 points. So A lot of the defensive amulets and rings have not changed, but they now have a greater and a lesser variant of the flag. So rings are 20, you can stack them and get 40, or amulets are a single slot for 30. I debated on making amulets 40. I don't know. That would be a lot. But in the first game, they would have been equivalent to 25. The rings gave 50, but they were twice the value of whatever. Anyways, they'd be equivalent to 25. But you couldn't stack them in the first game. It was on or off. You couldn't stack them. Here you can stack them. All charms stack in the mod. Daggers, charm daggers, as in the charm slot, are generally more unique and conditional than other item slots. They now actually do a bunch of stuff, and they're not just generic stats most of the time. If they are generic stats, they're still something useful and powerful. So there's stuff like gain health on riposte, which includes head stabs on mages. This is like, in the base game, I think it's like 20% or 30% of your health from a single riposte. I might change this to like 50% on a riposte. And so you'd have this opportunity to play around the mage. Mages can give you 3 head stabs per combat. And so you'd be able to get like half a potion every time you do that. And technically, I guess you'd probably get half a potion when you finally do the final stab, but the final stab resets your health anyway, because you finish your mission. But 50% health on like a dagger stab is one of those that's still in the game. A bunch of things have been moved off of other things. So like HP or MP when you're not blocking, but parrying, those are still there on like rings and amulets, but they're not on daggers anymore. Daggers are more focused on something unique, such as a trade-off. There are a bunch of trade-off items as you get to the later game. But daggers are never duplicated. You won't have a dagger stab on a dagger and a dagger stab on a ring. That's just how it's going to be. Amulets might be duplicated, but they're often a lesser greater combo. So you might have a, this or that kind of situation. Let's get into it. You've probably already been reading a few of these. Let's get into it. I removed all of the attack daggers, the ones that give 20% damage to a damage type. So it was like 20% damage if you had the matching to fire and fire. Fire and fire is 100% fire. Pyromancer's sword, the cryomancer's vanguard or whatever. Those would gain 20% damage, while everything else would only get 10%. But it wasn't 10% of the whole weapon. It was 20% of half of the weapon, because half of it was that damage type. So I didn't like those. I don't find them super interesting in the early game, and I think that they're more of a trap for the player than anything. And then a bunch of the amulets and rings and stuff already give defense, so you're getting like super generic offense, super generic defense, and neither one of them feels very powerful, because if you're wearing the Pyromancer's amulet for defense, nothing does fire damage until you get to the Electromancer, which is like an hour away on average, unless you jump to the second area where the boss does, the spider lady does fire damage, lightning damage, which is half fire. But again, it's like, well, it's only resisting half of that damage. So I kept all the resistance stuff, but I removed all the dagger damage stuff, and I wanted better. I wanted more unique, more utility type stuff there. There are some damage stuff there, but anyways. The Cutthroat's dagger originally gave max stamina. It now gives riposte damage of 25%. There is a late game dagger, because you can't get the Cutthroat's dagger. So this is a repeated effect. It's a lesser greater. The other one gives 50%. That's unchanged. So you can swap out the Cutthroats. Also, the name Cutthroat's dagger. It's like you're executing someone. Like, as dark as that is, riposte damage kind of makes sense. I think with the name, I can excuse a lot of these names though. So justification. Pyromancer's dagger has been changed to damage on parry. This further enables a direct parry only, riposte only type combo run. So you have to parry and riposte for that run. I am currently in the process of doing that run. I just completed the Huntsman a few days ago. It is an unlisted video, though. I haven't really released those. Come to the channel. I can share those with you on the channel, the Discord channel. And if you really like the mod, please come to the Discord channel and discuss it. Like, tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like. I'll think about what you don't like and see if I agree. I don't always agree, sorry. Cryomancer's Dagger changed to 10% roll speed. This was kind of a questionable one. This will cut your roll 10% shorter. And it will technically probably cut into your iframes in some way, but not, you know, in a massive way. So 10% roll speed. This will allow you to cut your distance shorter. This is how the roll ring worked in the first game. The roll ring in the first game is a 33% roll speed, but roll speed is now on artifacts as of a previous update. So this stacks additively, so you can get 25% from artifacts on a perfect artifact at like level, you know, tier 40 artifact, and 10% from this dagger. They stack additively, so you could get 35% or a rounded 33, rounded third. I use 35 a lot for rounded thirds, kind of a round up from 33 to, you know, it's like, well, 33.33 repeating, of course, but maybe it should be 34. And if it's 34 now, it just feels bad. So let's just give you 35 and call it a day. That's how I feel about that. Anyways. Hydromancer's Dagger now works in all situations. I think this is a huge buff. And it's a little bit more reliable. And if it's not good enough, let me know. I've been kind of playing around with this as I was messing with stamina as well, because I wanted to fix it all at the same time. Hydromancer's Ring boosted from 10 physical defense to 20 physical defense. All rings are now the same. They're all 20 defense if they're a ring. All amulets are the same. They're all 30 defense if they're an amulet. I don't see why physical defense should be weaker than the other stuff. And I understand the logic behind it, but I just don't necessarily agree with it. Most mages do not do physical damage, so it's meaningless outside of actually taking physical damage. So enemies in the world do a lot of physical damage, but if you're just fighting enemies in the world, kind of who cares? I don't know. Only a handful of enemies do physical damage raw. They might do half physical and half something else. Venomancer's Dagger, this is partially built, but this is scattered all over the game code. So it's work in progress. Work in progress. Venomancer's Dagger has been changed to 20% debuff duration. If you've ever played a game with a lot of modular stats, I've been playing Deadlock over the past not quite a year. There's a bunch of stuff in there. It's like, oh yeah, here's this range buff and it affects all your abilities. Or here's this duration buff and it affects all your abilities. The idea is that things do damage per second, right? You have this damage over time per second thing. And especially with the changes in dots over here, where all burst fire will now have a dot. All lightning damage will have a dot. All poison damage, all cold damage will have a dot. It'll be built in. That goes along with this change. So this is, in the sense of a dot, it is 20% increase in damage from the damage over time. You're increasing it by 20%, both in the damage and in the duration. So there's a multiplier there. If it's just something that's a status effect, it's the same thing, but there's no damage associated with it. So it doesn't need to increase the damage. But primarily this is intended for damage over time. That's the primary structure of what that's supposed to be for. Venomancer's Amulet has been turned into the healing ring from the first game. It is 0.75 life per second. That is just off of 1% per second. But 1 health per second is actually really strong in this game, I think, more so than the first game. The game is a lot more hectic, so you're doing a lot more weaving and dodging and ducking and diving and whatnot. And so a life per second feels a little more powerful in this game, I think. The base value of that on artifacts, it does stack with artifacts. Base value of that on artifacts is something like 0.1 or 0.15. So if you get an artifact for regen and you get the Venomancer's Amulet for regen, you will be able to offset damage over time. very easily, as well as just fight in a game, in a fight longer without drinking potions. So remember that you have less potions in this mod. Instead of 5, you have 3. And instead of doing like 60% over 3 seconds, they do 80% over 4 seconds. The original game was 100% over 5 seconds. So it's the same percentage per second in the mod as the first game, but it's just over 4 seconds. So you're not going to overheal. You're not going to overheal as much in the mod because the original game didn't want you overhealing like Salt 1 allowed you to overheal a lot. You will be able to overheal if you're healing at half health. So heal at half health, you get hit, you'll still have some overheal there. Amulet helps with a lot of that, so you don't have to rely on potions. You don't necessarily have to go searching for the upgrades if you don't want to. There's no wounds in this game, so healing is a lot more strong. English, a lot stronger. Sorry, I don't know what that is. Short circuit in my brain. Electromancer's Dagger, moving on. Electromancer's Dagger changed to Rage grants bonus, grants global bonus of damage. So you have a maximum rage of 15. The Electromancer's Dagger, the changed version, and this is built and working, as far as I'm aware. Tested it, so it should be working. It gives a global damage bonus. So whether it be your spells, because your weapon can have spells, they just use rage, right? And there's rage weapons. It works with your spells. It works with your melee. It works with your ranged, but you have to build it up and you have to maintain it. Up to 15%. So this is one of those conditional daggers. It's very similar to the damage daggers that were removed. Sorry, I need to take a drink. Okay. You can't see me, so that's why I'm saying it out loud. And I don't want to edit like 3 seconds of silence. I'm sorry. It's just way too much work. Electromancer's Dagger allows you to basically just have this like permanent uptime of damage. It's primarily intended for melee. It works on range. It works on spells. So if you cast a spell, if you use the rage to cast a spell, you're going to lose some of your rage to cast the spell, but you'll still get some of the damage. Let's say you'll get half of the damage, 7.5%. So it is maybe not the best thing in the world, but it's definitely not the worst thing in the world. You do have to actually build up your rage and keep it there. In a fight, that's not too difficult, but if you're rolling around too much, you might lose your rage. Maybe I'll change rage a little bit as well to just maybe it depletes faster, or maybe it builds faster, maybe both. Moving on, Aeromancer's Dagger, Act 2 here. I've tried to sort them into acts because it's just so hard to keep track of how many changes there are. Change to +5 max ammo. This is not abusable, sort of. You can equip it, make more ammo, and unequip it. It will delete that 5 ammo. So don't abuse it because it doesn't work. I made sure of it. Sorry, no fun. No fun allowed. No, but +5 ammo at the point of the Aeromancer is huge. Because you're going from, 16 to 21. If you've done 1 turn-in, you've got 22. You might be able to get 2 turn-ins around this point, which would be 23 ammo. But it's about 50%, not 50%, 30% more ammo, 5 over 16. So not quite 30%. No idea what the number on that is. This is really good for ranged. The idea behind this is Aeromancer is making your arrows fly better or something, and therefore you can hold more arrows because they're smaller. I don't know. Make up your own justifications if you want. Aeromancer's Amulet is now 25% extra slide. That is missing a period and it bothers me. 25% extra slide. So there are some weapons in both the first game and the second game that have extra slide on certain actions where they slide your character forward. There might be some that slide you backwards, but I think it's always forwards for the extra slide. These weapons in the first game always granted double slide, 100%. But here they only grant 25%. So that's another thing. Maybe I'll look into that. Maybe they should be stronger. Maybe they should be more. But this is additive. So if you have a weapon that has 50% slide, this would become 75% slide. So you'll be sliding all over the place, which is technically how the Aeromancer kind of fights. He's spinning and sliding and moving, and it works. I think it fits nicely there. Very utility-oriented items here, for your range and your melee, but definitely interesting. This allows you to probably use a lot of weapons from a farther distance, slide forward and hit without the threat of being hit while you're kind of swinging. So might be useful on a lot of the heavier weapons or slower weapons at least. Could even be useful on fists. I don't know if fists slide forward at all. They probably do. Terramancer's Dagger changed 10% melee damage for extra stamina on melee attacks. So another conditional. It's like this Rage one. It's only 10% versus 15%, but you don't have to build it up. Oh, yeah. I did change this. Okay, never mind. I didn't read the next line. This Terramancer is... It's actually this. Extra stamina on attacks is a different one. Sorry about that. There we go. We'll just do that. It is 10 weight. So again, in the early game, 10 weight is a ton of weight. So it'll make you roll and walk slower. Maybe even fat roll, depending on if you have any endurance whatsoever. But you'll get 10% extra melee damage for that 10 weight. Terramancer is a big boy, and he is himself kind of slow, and he just kind of slams things around. So I feel like this fits, again, very well with a conditional for the mage that it's attached to. His amulet is physical resistance, maybe? I don't remember what his amulet is. But currently I don't have a plan to be changed because I don't have it on the list with a question mark. So it must have been acceptable. I think it's physical resistance because the Hydromancer's ring is physical resistance and the Terramancer's amulet is physical resistance. So you could stack them. It's one situation where you can stack them. And it would be, yes, it is 30 physical resistance on that. Again, I don't know how useful that is, but yeah, that's a lot of physical resistance if you want to stack them. Hydromancer's amulet is poise defense, and Terramancer's ring is also poise defense, so they're actually opposite of each other. That's unchanged. I didn't do anything there. They're just that way. Necromancer got completely reworked for his items. Amulet changed to, so we're starting with the amulet here. Percentage damage when low health. So this is already an effect that's in the game. Originally, it was a 20% health check. I'm making it into a 35% health check. Again, it's that 1/3. At 35% health, you're generally in the one-shot range. So I don't think it's that much difference, but it's just kind of getting it active is a thing. This might also, I know it sounds weird, I may change this code-wise so that if you're at full health, it works, and if you're at low health, it works. But I don't want you to be able to abuse that, so it's kind of like, well, do I set a flag that you've used a potion? So for right now, I'm not touching it. Necromancer's ring was silver find. I have changed this to +3 luck, which means that you can wear 2 of them and get +6 luck, which isn't very impressive for item find or anything, but it is something. I do want to change luck to also give silver find in the near future. So in this patch, not necessarily a lot, but just some. Right now, 3 luck is 3% item find. I know it sounds terrible, right? It is terrible. You get 10 item find for just being guiltless in the game. That's both vanilla and the mod. 10 luck just for being guiltless. And that's very similar to Dark Souls 1. Not quite the same numbers and structure, but humanity and whatnot. But this allows you to potentially go a whip or crossbow for very cheap, because you're going to get 3 or 6 levels of luck without having to invest in it in the tree, which means that you can focus on investing in armor or dexterity or whatever else that those weapons require or that your character wants. I think this is cute because we already have a health ring on the Pyromancer, which, by the way, is 3 vitality at the moment. The Cryomancer's ring is 3 stamina, or 3 willpower, actually. So quite a bit of stamina there. So early on, you can get quite a bit of stats. I may nerf these two to be like 2 vitality and 2 stamina, but then they feel kind of bad. But the fact that you can stack them is really their asset there. If you're wearing one of either of these 3 rings, then you're going to get a ton of stats from it. And I may mess with luck's item find ratio right now. 1 luck equals 1% drop chance is, I don't know. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. So I might change this to be like double, because then it'd be like 6% drop chance. You wear 2 of them, you get 12% drop chance. That feels pretty good, right? And then there's another item find item later down the road. I don't remember where it's on. So like maybe I need to change item find in general. It uses a different formula than the first game. I don't remember how both games work exactly. I think the first game is number over 200, and the second game is number over 100, similar to how armor works in both games. You just use those numbers, I think, repeatedly in different settings as different numbers. Necromancer's Dagger changed to 15% melee reach. This works exactly how you'd expect it to work. It is additive with artifacts. Artifacts can give you 20 to 25%. And again, I may change these numbers. They make it higher. Reach in this game does not feel very big. Yeah. There is a reach modifier on whips as well as on great hammers. That modifier is meant to be a base modifier on the weapon. So those are multiplicative to the base of the weapon and the weapon's position. This is additive with artifacts after that multiplier. So a hammer has like 65% reach. This would be multiplicative with that 65% because that's the new base value, air quotes kind of thing. Thaumamancer's Dagger changed to 20% healing from all sources. This means that, and I might change this to be like 20% longer healing. Because that was meant to be the offset of the debuff duration. So it is meant to be better healing. I might also make it like longer positive buffs or something like that. But I didn't want to do it for everything equally. So we'll see. We'll see how I play with that. I also have a bunch of question marks. I could still do positive buffs separate from healing. This could also be maybe added to focus, the focus potions. Maybe I know there's another item that gives better focus potions, so maybe not. Amulet changed to plus 10 defense. This is stolen from the Bibliomancer. I figured if you need plus 10 defense early on, you don't really have the option of it. You have a bunch of these like 20 fire defense and 30 whatever defense, but you don't have a plus all defense. The Thaumamancer being kind of the light, the cleric, the bishop, whatever. Paladin type mage. I wanted you to have something a little bit different, and I don't remember what it was here. It was probably like gain MP from digging through haze burnt remains or something. I removed all of the haze burnt remain digging things, so it is what it is. I might give you something by default, like maybe digging through those. I want to increase the silver for one, but maybe digging through those gives you some kind of maybe it gives you a chance for a guiltless shard. Maybe it gives you a chance. It already gives you a chance for all the crafting materials, the secondary crafting materials. It gives you a chance for Irona. It gives you a chance for herbs. It gives you, I might give it a small, every time you do that, maybe you get 5 health and it doesn't require the artifact. Maybe it gives you a little bit of focus and it doesn't require the artifact. But it's, maybe it's considered a meditative state and you're kind of healing yourself or kind of refreshing your mind. Anyways, I'll think about that. I might forget. Probably will forget. So many things on my mind. A lot of things in real life, so to call it. that will take my mental energy. Sanguimancer's amulet has been changed to lifesteal on hit. It was like, I think it was heal on like riposte or something. No, it was, I think it was heal on kill, or I don't remember. There are a bunch of them there. This might be MP on kill, I think, maybe. There's a bunch of dev notes. I can go look over here. This one, focus on kills. That's what got removed there. So this can be. There we go. So like focus on kills is what it was. Let's go back down here. The lifesteal on hit. This is supposed to work with melee and ranged only. So let's make sure that that's, put that out on a question mark so that I can check it. Sanguimancer's dagger. You can also get lifesteal on hit from artifacts. So this is 1.5% lifesteal on hit, and then you can get about 1.5 to 3% lifesteal from artifacts as well. Yeah. Sanguimancer's dagger, pronunciation check, I don't know. Change to heal on riposte, so head stab. You know, this is your 30% health, 50% health on head stab in a mage fight. I think that is interesting. I don't know how useful it is, but at least it's there if you want the heals. Fungalmancer's dagger changed to who knows what. I don't know. I don't remember what this is. I'm not going to check the dev notes. Let's move forward. We're past an hour. I'm sorry. It's just a lot of data. And I want to make sure that I'm covering it because then it brings me to think about everything that I've changed as well. Kind of a way for me to review. Leather ring melee damage. So in a past patch, the first charms that I changed were the Chronomancer amulet, the leather ring, and the leather amulet. The leather ring was 10% damage, but it was also the leather amulet was 10% damage, and I made everything stack. Everything stacks 100%. So I wanted to change this up, and so in a previous patch, I made this ring to be melee only. So it's a 10% melee only. You can wear both rings and get 20% damage. Previously, you could wear both rings and get 12.5% damage. One ring was still 10% in the original game, so really what this is doing is allowing you to stack. But there's a lot of really good rings up here, right? 3 vitality, 3 stamina, or willpower, 3 luck. A better physical defense ring or whatever, So there's a really competitive amount of stuff here. And while some of it will probably still fall by the wayside and not be, S tier, I think there's a lot of really good options. And that's really what I wanted to do. A lot of these just felt like filler because they were, and I want them to be more interesting. I can't make them Diablo level interesting because I'm not going to write 4 stats on an amulet, right? I don't want that. You have your artifacts for kind of your Diablo stats, right? So, and then amulet range to damage increase from 15 to 20%. This is meant to kind of semi-offset the range damage, reduction. This is a multiplier effect. So to make up 75, this 25% cut, you need 33% damage increase, right? To get, 25% of, 25% over 75%. So math. So yeah, no range damage has been reduced in the mod and might be reduced even further. So this is kind of your ranged amulet. And then if you combine it, and this is intentional, this is meant to be your ranged dagger. So if you want to go all out like ranged weapon, this is your combo right there. If you want to do it that way. Fungalmancer's dagger, I don't know, Mechanomancer's dagger. Mechanomancer's amulet and both, and the rings that you can wear 2 of are all endurance, all carry weight bonuses. They're not endurance, but they're carry weight bonuses. Who cares? Is there a real difference on that? I don't know. I guess endurance is soft capped. That would be the difference. By the way, these rings are not soft capped. This one is. because this one affects damage. But I don't know how to handle that. It's just code issue. More so it's a code issue, like where this is read in the source of truth. But Mechanomancer's Amulet and both rings give carry weight, which means you could stack all three of them. You'd be sacrificing damage or all sorts of other stats. But man, you could carry a lot of stuff, especially in new game without a plus. I did not change the Mechanomance. I don't think so. I don't think I changed the amulet to be extra. So I think both the amulet and the ring are the same amount, which means that you can still get triple, but you're not going to get like 3.5 times the carry weight from wearing all three. So it's kind of a pick your poison situation instead. Fungalmancer's Dagger, still don't know on that. Chromancer's Dagger, this was a change in the past. It was 10% attack speed, casting speed, and 10% movement speed. I've removed the movement speed aspect off of this because I can maybe throw movement speed on something else. But, I mean, heck, I could put movement speed on this roll speed ring, right? Movement speed and roll speed. Maybe I do that. 10% roll speed is pretty good, but 10% movement speed is garbage. So I don't know where I'd want to put that. But it does make sense to kind of just be somewhere on the Chronomancer. You know, Chronomancer is all about time and literally has a slow movement, slow attack speed, slow time effect. I think it's like 75% slow or 80% slow. This actually elongates your iframes if you use this, or if you have a Chronomancer in the area and they use the time slow. Because the animation is elongated, the iframe is tied to the keyframe, and it just elongates it. It's pretty neat. You can abuse that really heavily. Anyways, casting speed is a big one here. Allows you to spam your spells. Attack speed, also pretty good. Chronomancer's Dagger, I don't know. Ring, I don't know. This one is, if I recall, that one's super weird. It's like a Rage Window. I don't think it's actually Rage Window. I think it actually doubles the amount of rage you get per hit. So I might keep it, but reword it. We'll see. Necromancer's Amulet changed to 15% runic arts damage. This was previously down on where Thaumamancer's Amulet was previously runic arts damage. So it's been moved up to Act 4. So as a runic arts user, you are going to be on a disadvantage here. But I think runic arts are pretty powerful as they are. And maybe there needs to be some like focus stuff down here that's a little bit better and easier to access, so that at least you're not just grasping at straws. Chronomancer's Dagger. Oh yeah, I already covered that. I don't know. But yeah, runic arts damage. So you got your 20% range weapon damage or 15% runic arts damage. Dracomancer's Amulet has been changed to Silver Find. It was on the Necromancer's Ring, but we put luck there. Now it's on this, and it was originally 50% on the ring, which means you could get 62.5% if you ran 2 rings. But I've buffed it to 75% because I want this to be competitive with like damage. And silver is basically useless. This is effectively a salt find item. If you want to use it for salt find or buying a bunch of equipment or something that you think looks cool. So I don't think this is super useful, but it is there, and it's buffed from the 50%. It's a 1.5 multiplier, like I did for other amulets. The dagger change to grants rage focus and stamina when hit. This one has not been hooked up. Well, this is to do. It just means that I haven't done it yet. But yeah, when you're hit, the idea is you will gain some mild amount of stamina, some mild amount of focus, and some mild amount of rage, which means that if you want to be kind of tanky or whatever, I'm thinking about this probably being more of a on-hit thing than it is on damage thing. So it is worded that way currently, but I just wanted to clarify that. So like you get hit for any damage, probably not dots, but any damage, and maybe you'll gain like 1 rage and 2 focus and 3 stamina or 5 stamina or something like that, and just a little bit of stuff. And maybe on hit it should just be rage and focus, and maybe it should just be rage. I don't know. But you've got a rage dagger that gives you damage percentage, so this is more of an all-rounder, I think. And I'll have to think about it. Again, come to the Discord if you have ideas. Dialomancer's Ring changed to 5 all defense. This was previously like 2.5 defense and 5% damage. But we have 10% damage rings that already stack, and I didn't really want to nerf the defense on this, and we don't have a defense ring. So you could wear this with the amulet and get plus 20 defense everything. But that's 3 slots for 20 defense everything. So, it's something, but plus 5 defense. Diablomancer's Amulet changed to 15% Salt Find. I might even buff this up to like 20% or something. I see this as probably a speedrunner's item more so than anything. If you want to like hit only a certain number of mages and still have the capacity to move through the game really fast. There was something that gave Salt Find, and this one was like multiplicative with the artifacts and no longer multiplicative. So if you stack artifacts plus this, it'll just be that plus this. But yeah, I might buff this to 20 or 25%. It is an amulet after all. I'm going to make a note just to remind myself. Umbromancer's Amulet changed to, these are really crazy. This is insane. I love being a designer and to like do stuff like this. Obviously, I'm just designing a mod, but okay. These all combine with each other. And they all don't have to combine with each other if you don't want. Amulet, and this is all to do, this has not been built. Amulet changes 50% of all damage taken to Dark. Dark is a damage type, 50% damage. And then the dagger grants 15% global bonus, but 15% all damage increase. So it's kind of similar to the low health thing, but you could still use potions. But 15% damage bonus taken. However, the rings are unchanged and give 20 dark defense. So if you stacked 40 dark defense and then used this and this, you take more damage. All the damage gets, partially converted. Half the damage extra taken would be converted, and then you'd be able to resist the new damage that you're taking, while also, I guess, just having this as a defensive stat. Like, it doesn't just have to offset this. It's still a defensive stat. It's still decent. You can also then wear the Umbromancer's armors if you want, because they're going to have some of the highest, if not the highest, dark defense in the game. Is 50% the best number for this? I have no idea. No idea. It just sounds chunky. I like chunky game design. I like my stews, not my purees. So 50% damage taken to dark. I think this is really cool. Let me know if you think it's stupid, because some of you probably do, or will. Almost done. Almost done. Kinetomancer's Dagger changed to 15% all damage at the cost of 30% more stamina. So everything else, I'm probably not going to change his ring, but we'll see. Everything else the Kinetomancer does, the amulet increases the damage you do against shields, and or something like that, to enemy stamina, basically. And then the ring decreases the amount of stamina damage that enemies do to you. So all of his stuff is stamina type stuff. But Kinetomancer's ring, stamina damage isn't really that interesting as a defensive stat. But if it's too good of a stat in the late game, like this is conditional on purpose. Like you could do this, or you could do this, or you could do, where in the world is it? this, that one there. And so the idea is like each one of these, all right, I scrolled way too far. Each one of these late game items needs to be a little bit more conditional, a little bit more unique, because if it's a standard stat bonus, you're going to want it like 5 hours before you're going to find it. Bibliomancer's Amulet is currently 10 all resistance, but I put that on Thaumamancer's Amulet, right? So what can I do here? Well, Bibliomancer's Amulet could be an upgrade to that. It could be. It could obsolete Thaumamancer's Amulet. Now it kind of makes sense, even if it's just 15 all defense. It's not great. It's not amazing. But it's something, right? But yeah, I've got a lot of question marks. I should have all the question marks in there for all the items I may change. Anything that's not listed is either forgotten, or which hopefully I haven't, or it's not going to change. And even some of the ones that are there may not change significantly. Like Bibliomancer's Amulet is 10 defense. Maybe it goes to 15 or 20. All defense, making it actually semi-viable as an amulet. Bibliomancer's Ring, that might be the rage gain window. No, it's something else. But anyways, that's it for the patch notes. I know I've talked an absolutely massive amount, but this allows me to review the patch notes. It allows me to share what's going on in the patch or in the mod because it's not out yet and I haven't played any of the game, aside to test things that are individualized for the mod. If you made it this far, please subscribe. Please like the video. It helps if you like a video for me to know that a human watched it versus someone fell asleep in front of their computer. I think a lot of views on my last video were people falling asleep in front of their computer because nobody liked it. One person commented, and I think 2 of those views are probably legitimate. Maybe 3. Probably 3 of them are legitimate. But after the third person watched most of the video, because there was like 3 hours watched or just under 3 hours watched of a 3 hour or of a 1 hour video. After that, it just suddenly got like 10 more views. Most of those views watched the entire thing from beginning to end with almost no skipping. So it's probably people falling asleep in front of their computer. And that doesn't really tell me how interested people are in the mod. Great for view time. Not great for actual communication to me. So like the video, comment on the video, come to the Discord, subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, and otherwise, take care. Have a great day.